Yeah, so anyway, I'm 65 years old, divorced. I have 3 wonderful kids in their 30s. I've lost track of the count, but I was over 20 years as a client of Washington County Mental Health Services in the CRT program, and what's now is the CSP program. And so pretty much my mental health disability was I was unable to function and live in my world as it was. And it's right now, just to bring you quickly up to date, I have a landscaping, an organic landscaping design build business. So I design and I have a crew of about 5 or 6 each season that maintains gardens and installs my designs. And so we go, actually, I'm dressed like I am, sorry about that. Just came from pruning, and so we start like March 1st and go to just before Thanksgiving. And wonderful crew, and this is my 18th year. And so anyway, so that's me up to date. Now I'm going to slide back in time. This room here is very familiar to me. Last spring I presented my story, and somebody told me, and I had no idea at the time that was or is a two-way mirror. And we used to have I was in day hospital, which was, that was how dysfunctional I was. Would come here in the morning. I was driven here. I'd lost use of my car. I couldn't drive anymore. Too many accidents. And so my youngest child was delivered to Turtle Island, which actually was up the road there a little bit. And I walked down here for day hospital to be able to stay here. Art therapy, group therapy. So that's what I remember, having group therapy. I didn't know I was doing live. If I was. I'm basically paranoid still. So anyway, so yeah, Heaton Street is very familiar to me, and lots of memories. So I'd like to I've got a half an hour, but I'd like to sort of go over my history, which will give you a sense of where I came from and how I recovered. And I put that in past tense, but I'm in recovery. I consider myself to be still recovering. I learned a lot. And a lot of what I learned was how to be open to whatever can help me. So still working on it. So, and that's a good thing. Not depressing. That's a good thing. So anyway, it started way back in 1987. So like 87 to 91, it was a year and a half in day hospital. 89, 88, 89, I can't even remember at this point, but I got discharged from my first hospitalization, or probably my second hospitalization, to day hospital. The symptoms were depression, anxiety, severe. I was suicidal, I was a cutter, I was severely anorexic. So pretty, you'd think, okay, not much hope there. I was sort of gauging. I know you've received the key concepts. So, hope, education, support, advocacy, personal responsibility. All of these, I'll be bringing them in as I talk, because they just will highlight my path. So anyway, I don't consider I had much hope back then, but I must have, because I remained alive, and but many hospitalizations. So during that time, the support that I had, I got myself out, and and got some therapy, which is the most scary thing that I had ever done in my life up to then. At that time, I was a registered nurse, and I was working at Central Vermont Medical Center, and I was teaching also at Norwich University to RNs. I was a clinical instructor. So I had a pretty good career lined out for me. I'd gone to Emory University, had a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and you can see that I didn't quite keep up with that. But you know, I was on my way. So, but anyway, even with that background, I was scared to death to actually talk to somebody about what was going on in my life, and so support for me at that time was the therapy, regardless of how scary it was the hospitalizations. I also got on Social Security Disability, Medicaid. I qualified for Section 8 housing, so those were supports, but all just to make sure I could eat. I had something, a roof over my head, and I had money coming in. But still support. And as you can imagine, I didn't have my family with me. So in order to get the help that I need through, and it was through Washington County Mental Health to start with, I had to leave my family. And so I had 3 small kids, and that was very difficult. But I, at that time, was not helping them at all. And I also could not drive myself to my therapy and get the help that I needed. So that was also going on. So just to bring in, so during that time, so I didn't have much hope. I had this support that was just sort of a framework holding me up. And then, so what was happening as far as education? I was starting to learn about myself. I didn't, it's key to know how you feel. I didn't have any idea how I was feeling, and hence the depression, anxiety. And so I was starting, I had a case manager through Washington County Mental Health. I had meds, I had a psychiatrist, and then the therapy. I was starting to learn a little bit about myself. Feelings. I had been molested as a young kid, young child, and so that's where all those feelings got squelched. But so all this depression, anxiety just sort of blossomed over me, and I had no idea where it came from. And so I had to sort of start from basics to find out what had happened, and how to learn how to feel again. It just was very key. So things started to improve once I had that framework. My routine, though, became therapy, multiple hospitalizations. I got kicked out of Central Vermont Medical Center for being a repeat. They really, I shouldn't laugh, but I think they considered that I was manipulating them. And, I found out that later. But they just said, no, we don't have a revolving door here. And I said, well, I need something. So I went down to Brattleboro Retreat. And that actually was a good move because I had like 12 hospitalizations there. But it wasn't just therapy and art therapy and movement therapy, and which was all very good. There is also, like, we had classes on what comes to mind is what's the fight and flight, why, mechanism, and why do you react the way you do without having any control. That was part of it, but it was like there was a framework of some classes, and but to me it was, I didn't remember very much of it, but it was being in a group and hearing other people with the same stuff going on in their lives, and starting to feel comfortable with myself, with the feelings that were coming up. And so anyway, I got a little butterfly pin for each stay. So I've got at home, I've got like 12 or 14 butterflies in my. But anyway, so hospitalization screeners, calls to the screener. Some of my routine was regular visits with my kids, and so I started having mending and building my relationship with my kids, which was so good. I was volunteering at a garden center. I couldn't work because I could work like an hour and a half or 20 minutes, and I had to leave. So I found a garden center that was open, friends that was open to me doing what I could and leaving if I had to. But it was working in the dirt, and as you can see, it worked. So I went to school to get better at it. But so anyway, I did that just a little bit at a time. I worked out a toolkit for myself, a personal toolkit, so that I could start to manage feelings and when I started to get out of control, so that I could do something else before just calling the screeners. So my toolkit was my therapy. It was a phone call list, people who agreed to let me call them if I needed to. It was a stay over list. If I didn't think that I could manage staying through the night, I had a couple of people that I could call up and just say, can I come over and stay over? I had to sort of swallow my pride and do a lot of asking and reaching out, which, by the way, falls under the advocacy. So self-advocacy. So I would say that I had the start of some hope there, because I think you need some self-advocacy in order to have hope. That journaling, drawing, exercise, regular exercise, to help control some of this stuff. 4 p.m. tea or 10 a.m. tea or whatever, in order just to sit down, take a deep breath. And then hopefully at the end of that list was meds or calling the screeners. Part of the journaling, drawing thing was trying to identify my feelings. And so the only thing, I have a huge pack of drawings from that time that it was just trying to draw it out, to picture it, what it is. I couldn't identify it, but maybe so I tried. That was the beginning of identifying feelings. So the supports during that time were Brattleboro Retreat Vocational Rehabilitation with the state. I didn't think I could go back to nursing, so they gave me a test, an IQ test or a occupational therapy test to see what I was good at, and then Washington County Mental Health, again the case manager, but also Green Mountain Workforce, which they're the ones who sort of helped me figure out that maybe I could volunteer with this garden center, and then how to deal with going back to work. So at this point, I thought, and this was like the early 90s, I had the Social Security disability, and I thought, I was only in my 40s, I don't want to be on this for the rest of my life, and so, how am I going to do this? So I thought up this 10-year plan. I had no idea if I'd even make it 10 years. And it had to do with Green Mountain Workforce and vocational rehab and their encouragement and ideas for working. And so I thought, well, I'm good at school, and so I'll go back to school. So I went to VTC, got accepted, and first I thought I'd do computers, and then I quickly decided I couldn't handle physics and electrical. So anyway, but I switched the horticulture program. So a 2-year associate's degree I got in about 6 years, and graduated in 2000. But this whole 10-year plan kind of idea sort of gave me hope that there was light at the end of the tunnel, and that, I'd been successful in school before. But all through this, I think my last hospitalization at Brattleboro was 1998. I graduated from VTC in 2000. So it was up and down, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. So here's where personal responsibility comes in. It's nobody knew me as well as I know myself, even though I didn't think it was very good if I couldn't identify my feelings very well. But so I figured I know what I can do, what I like, and so I came up with the VTC idea and then just plugged through it. But also what was happening was I was a mother. And the wife thing didn't work out too well, so that hence divorced. But my ex-husband is always and still is very supportive. Thank goodness, because I needed that, even though it's difficult. But anyway, my 10-year plan, part of the impetus for going through with that, or even coming up with it, was my kids. And my family. But I was learning slowly but surely how to get better, or I had to believe that I was learning how to get better, and I wanted my kids to know that. So a little personal responsibility in that. Any questions? Yeah.
I wrote it down, actually. Did you ever feel that you were lost inside yourself and that you wouldn't ever recover?
How did you know? Yes. I call that the dark side.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that was what I'm talking about. Is it's hard to remember back that far because the memories weren't very pleasant. But it's hard to remember any hope that I had. And but apparently I was feeling I was able to take help from other people, from these supports, so that I got beyond that eventually. It just took a while. And I'm about to talk about reaching out. And that's a big part of my recovery is, there's a self-advocacy. It's believing in yourself, having hope, no matter how little it is, but sort of keeping a kernel there, and then once that becomes stronger, then you hopefully can start reaching out to other people and coming out of that dark enclosed space, and I think that that's key to recovery. part of, I went from self-advocacy to a advocacy for others, which meant listening to others, in group therapy or with friends or with work co-workers, with family, all very difficult, but slowly but surely saying, okay, sharing a little bit of what was going on with me so that other people could help me. It's like I found out that people thought I was just doing fine, and it was a huge, I was real good at this face, putting on to other people, yeah. And people were so shocked. I mean, I was at Central Vermont Medical Center. I had been a charge nurse on one of the units, and here I was in the mental health unit, and so it was very humbling, but it was sort of, okay, well, I got to start asking and reaching out, and so yeah. So anyway, so when I graduated from VTC, I started my own business, and there wasn't any entrepreneurial thing on my part. It was because I couldn't work for anybody. I didn't know how many hours a day I could work or how many days a week I could work. And so I thought, well, I'll start my own business, so I started $12 an hour, which I thought was amazing. But just with gardens, maintaining gardens, and so 3 years later I started hiring people, but just having the business and having a plan helped to go forward. In 2009 I got off from SSDI. So, and I graduated from the CRT program here at Washington Mental Health, and so was on my own, but it was a really good feeling, and so we're up to now, and I told you what my toolkit was a while ago, in the beginning. But I still have a toolkit, and that's that tells me that I've got hope that I'm gonna keep plugging along and be the person I want to be. Therapy is a part of it. I go usually one time a week, but I can make it all the way to once a month, and only because it's pleasant now. I'm not scared to death. So I have regular exercise. I'm always I have this feelings meter. I'm always sort of checking, why do I not feel so good about the situation, and my kids are always saying, oh no, not another sit down talk, Mom. But also I've graduated. I've moved on to, hey, why do I feel so good? So positive feelings were being squelched too, and so I've learned that feeling proud of myself and feeling happy in situations, but still the anger and the frustration, but it's not so scary, it's not so insurmountable, and I can talk about it with people. So being an employer, that's very handy. But what I've learned is with those feelings, being honest with people. So here I am again, reaching out, and really that's being supportive of myself is trying to get people, and here I am with you guys, But I also, I'm vice president of the board of Washington County Mental Health, and I talk about my story. I think it needs to be normalized. I think it needs, because, life is difficult, and there are friends and families and neighbors and coworkers and employers who have trouble, just everyday trouble, and it's all about mental health. And so anyway, so I try to be honest about how I'm feeling in the moment. That's the key, in the moment, not a week later after I've rounded somebody out. And listening to people. It's really hard. So I again, it's down, having this toolkit is part of my personal responsibility and social responsibility. And so just, I think I've sort of finished, but I just want to talk a little bit more about feelings, because it really was the key to sort of bring me down. And having we think about the negative feelings, but positive feelings are also very difficult to experience. And so when I say that I'm still learning, I'm still in recovery, one example is this learning to trust people. That paranoia that I mentioned, rears its ugly head too often. But so trust is a positive feeling. Love is a positive feeling. I'm still not married. I think it's because of my difficulty with those. So Patty, you talked about this, this drawing in and this alienation. This alienation is sort of trying to protect yourself, and I'm getting out of there, and have done a really good job being. Now I'm a good functional member of society, but I'm still struggling with that love and that trust, which means I have to crawl out of my womb and put myself out there. And but that's normal. It's not, it's part of learning good mental health, good hand washing, hygiene, it's the same thing. And so keep the fact that you guys are here is very cool, and I think you all are rock stars. Just to be here. So, any other questions? Yeah?
With everything that was going on with you, did you have any addictions to something else to overcome what you were feeling? Like maybe alcohol or drugs?
Oh, good question. Yes. The thing that got me to therapy was I was starting to drink too much beer. And being a nurse and being, just knowing what the danger signs were, I was going, I didn't drink a whole lot, but at the end of the day, I drank 2 or 3 beers, which I wasn't drinking before. So it happened sort of like in a 6-month period. And fortunately, I caught myself. And so that's when I started calling up to see if I could get some help, some therapy. I didn't get on medication right away, but eventually, and then stopped any of that. And again, it was my kids who were, because I didn't think enough of myself, so it was like my kids who were helping me to get help. My being a mother and wanting to be a good mother. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah, with I know with addiction that you're doing it to suppress your feelings and not deal with what's going on inside you.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of, not all of us, but a lot of us have some addiction to overcome and not
Exactly.
feel the way you want to feel anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
My question actually kind of piggybacks off of that, so I'm glad you went first. I think I guess the question is, what advice do you have for people who are afraid to kind of take that step towards a more productive direction? Because I think we all know these things that will make us feel better, and we know how to accomplish them. Like, I can go to therapy. But to actually take that step is really scary.
Yes.
And it makes it real, and
Yes.
people are afraid of taking that step because they think that it may make them worse and more anxious.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess like,
And it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like for you, it was that realization that, like, wow, I'm drinking more than I used to, and my kids are my motivation. But for some people, it's different. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess, like, what in general is your advice to people to take that step?
Yeah. Well, my little spiel seems, really simple and black and white, but it certainly wasn't. And there, I think the idea is, again, you guys know yourselves better than anybody else, and so you've got a good thing with that. However, our tendency, I think, is to just sort of wrap up in a ball and just try to protect us from what's going on outside of us. And so it's really hard to reach out. And so what I can just remember being so angry most of the time. That was one of the negative feelings that I had squelched. And I couldn't have told you I was angry. I probably told people that I wasn't, that I was depressed and anxious. So I definitely was angry. But so I didn't want any help. So it was very hard to take so I came into contact with people just because I'd gotten into such a dependent situation. And so here was a case manager, here was somebody from Broke Rehab, here was, so people in my life every single day who were potential support people. It was up to me, and they all had suggestions. And so, I got so where in the beginning, I just had to take the suggestions. But as I got better, trusting. So starting the trust, because you know yourself, but there's a lot that professional people know that can help.
Do you still have a hard time trusting?
Not as much, but it is still on my list. Actually, I just went through hiring employees in the last 3 weeks or so. And I think I've come a long way because I pretty much discovered I have to have my manager also interview these candidates, because I tend to just like everybody. And so I think I've come a long way with the trust thing, but and that's a little bit different from my business. But yeah, I think once you start reaching out and you have a positive result, even just incremental, then you start being able to ask for more or put yourself in a situation where you can get more help. So.
Can you describe, and maybe I'm even asking the wrong question, but the transition, because you were saying you were drawing a lot to try to figure out what your emotions even were, and then eventually there was a transition to where you could actually identify and label your feelings. And are you able to describe how that transition looked or how it worked for you?
Yeah, I think it was, you talk about trusting myself. And that's self-advocacy. And just really important was, and this one thing that I didn't mention really was in my toolkit, reminding myself that I could trust my instincts, I could trust myself. But it took a lot of time. I was doing journals on the computer just once, twice, 3 times a day. And that helped to, that's how I learned how to identify feelings. I actually, just to be very revealing, I labeled these feelings as people. And I even named them. This was very early on. But it sort of helped me. It was very divisive inside, and eventually I needed to integrate all of this. But it was sort of how I could sort of label, okay, that's the angry me, you know, and that's the really sad me. And so it was, that was a whole step in that process that took quite a while. But the trust in yourself, loving yourself, boy, that's a hard one. But, no. Well,
When
Ashley.
When you, like you just explained how you did things, was it a chore for change? Were you like scared at first?
I was petrified. Yeah. Yeah. When I first was in therapy, I didn't say a damn thing. I couldn't. But I had to keep going back because I was paying for it. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty low point. Yeah. But reaching out, you're never gonna, I mean, you're, at that point, you're trusting other people. And you've got to get to that point because you can't just do it on your own. And, but it takes a different amount of time, a different way of explaining it to yourself for everybody. Yeah.
Did you hibernate at all?
I mean, yes, yeah. It was difficult because I did reach out for help fairly soon, and then I was given so many things to do that I couldn't very well hibernate too much. But yeah, but very.
We have kids, so you probably couldn't.
Yeah, that was part of it, but I mean, it was like by the time I reached out for help, I sort of got something to do every day, and so I mean, I could not do it, but I got into worse trouble. But if I was hibernating, then something was really wrong, and so I was about to go to the hospital. So it was pretty much a warning sign for me. So, yeah, Patty.
I think for me I was like you, it took me a long time before I took that first step. Because I was always afraid of the fear of change. I felt like I was comfort within myself already, until everybody around me says, you have a problem, you might wanna, I'm like, I'm tired, this is my life, you know? Until you get someone to get you sometimes to realize that you do have a situation, a problem, because for me, I didn't want to hit it head on, because I was afraid that I wouldn't be who I was at the moment, at the time.
Yeah, change. Yeah, it's a hard one.
I was afraid.
Yeah. And education, so gaining information in order to recover, it comes in all kinds of forms, but it does require that change and thinking differently.
Could you please explain like the very beginning of how you got involved in the program? I know that you mentioned like hospitalizations and stuff. For some people, they're diagnosed really early on in life, and some people are diagnosed really late in life, and the acceptance of that for you. And can you explain a little bit more?
Yeah, I didn't accept it at all. But, yeah, I was 33. I just had my third child when I started experiencing symptoms of depression, anxiety, and denial, and so I was pretty busy trying to take care of my kids. We also had a herd of sheep, and I had 2 jobs, and so all that didn't help either. But yeah, I pretty much just got so overwhelmed that I could not function. I'm not sure I answered your question though. But recognizing what was happening.
I mean, had you always had these symptoms? And
No.
It was okay.
No.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that. No, as we talked about, I had a game face. I was handling very responsible positions in my job. Had 3 kids. Yeah, I didn't recognize it until it just bowled me over. I didn't enter. I went to therapy before I eventually got to the hospital. That was a whole. Going to therapy was a piece of cake compared to, how I viewed myself going to the hospital, and the stigma involved with that. So it's a huge hurdle to change your view of yourself. But I think what I'm trying to say here is you're not bad. It's not a negative thing. I mean, it's totally negative because you're just experiencing all this, but it's normal. And I mean, if I had some inkling that I had totally repressed the getting molested as a child, but if I had had some help at that time, nobody knew about it, and it took a while to have it come back to consciousness. But if I'd had help through that as a kid, then it wouldn't have changed my life quite so drastically. But I'm also, my view of being, my self-advocacy, I'm a rock star. What I went through is what I want for myself right now. I'm not, yes, it was damn hard, but I'm actually feel privileged that it happened, and that I had the people in place, I had the support, I had the opportunities for learning, and I could get through this. I mean, wow. And so right now I'm thinking, and I need to think this way, that it was positive, that this was positive, that I'm, hey, I didn't do too bad. And I turned 65 in a couple months. And, it's important at this end of life to feel like you've, it's been successful. But, so I guess I want to stress that it's, this is normal. And what you're doing is awesome. Because you're, just like you have sugar in your blood and you've got the symptoms and you go to the doctor and say, I'm peeing a lot and they test your blood and everything, pre-diabetes, and you take the precautions, you do what you're supposed to do to keep yourself healthy. Well, you're doing that right now, to keep yourself mentally healthy. And one thing you can't compare yourself to other people. Everybody's different. Everybody, I mean, like, oh, what's going on with me is not way as bad as what this person is experiencing. So I don't really deserve to, but you do. All the things that you need to keep you on track and to keep you feeling good about yourself and as good as you can. But, and just knowing that it's going to get better if you do these things, if you take the steps to keep yourself mentally healthy.
I have one more quick question. Did you ever lose family or friends because they couldn't understand or deal with what you were going through?
Actually, I gained friends. Yeah, I mean, it was sort of went in ebbs and flows. People who had a hard time, and I just sort of knew that some people had a hard time with it. But later on in my life, we connected again, and but I think I gained more friends.
Yeah, because I know a lot of times your family and friends back off away from you.
My family, maybe friends, but my family, they didn't know what to think, and they didn't know how to act, but they were there, maybe not right in the center of things.
Well, I've had family and friends tell me they can't deal with it. I said, you know what? I deal with it every day.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what I go through. You just see parts of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know,
it's very hard
Yes.
to not feel angry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the fact, is that people don't know, and you can't ever tell them really.
Yeah, because
what
sometimes
it's
you don't
like.
understand, and in order to explain to them,
Mm-hmm.
you can say, well, I'm feeling sad, but sometimes you can't really explain to someone what that sadness is because you don't understand
Mm-hmm.
why you're being sad at the moment
Mm-hmm.
because of, a certain illness
Yeah.
or diagnosis or,
I wasn't able to reach out in the beginning, and so I just sort of, took care of myself, and I tried not to feel hurt. It was hard not to feel hurt, but I had to, and here's trust again. I had to trust. I didn't, my family, that they were gonna be there, and I was fortunate because my family was sort of bent in that direction. They were patient with me. Not all families are. But they had to wait until I knew what was going on and sort of accept me. If they didn't accept me, I would have lost them. But that was another good thing. I'm really good at looking at the silver lining.
And there's also things for I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's also things for families to go to too.
Mm-hmm.
Families and friends, the NAMI thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I couldn't take care of my family, and that's what it is or expect that they could take care of me, and so that's the personal responsibility. I had to fix up my own toolkit and my own 10-year plan, and and really figure out how I was going to recover, and whoever still loved me, that was a bonus. Yeah, but not to, accepting, we're asking people to accept us. I had to accept them.
Yeah.
If they weren't if they didn't understand, and like my ex-husband, I had to accept that if I wanted to maintain a relationship enough so that we could keep raising the kids together. So.
Well, you couldn't take care of your kids because you didn't know how to take care of yourself at the moment. And I've been through because my sister got guardianship of my son for like a year or two because I didn't know how to take care of myself and deal with what I was going through in order to bring him home to take care of him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very hard. You're welcome. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Oh, I have a comment. I mean, I've known you a little bit, not really well, but for a long stretch of time,
yeah.
I think. I just really appreciate your sharing and your being willing to, sort of be open and vulnerable, and that's something I have a really hard time doing in this context. So it was really helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
It is hard. Go ahead, Patty.
I just want to commend you for not giving up at that time of your age where, you didn't stop. You just, tried to get where you are today. And I want to commend you for giving up
Thank you
and
very
giving
much.
us advice and maybe some pointers.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. See, that's where I'm learning and getting back. Yeah.
Takes time.
It's totally not, I'm presenting, but I'm totally getting back from you guys. And that was a revelation when I first tried to do something like this. Much more getting back and very helpful to me too. Yeah, cool.
Just be proud of yourself.
Oh, thanks, Shane. Yeah. I'm trying for an exit strategy for my business. So that I've got some social security coming in, or some money coming in after. So, we'll see. So that'll be a success. All righty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You never know what's wrong.
Huh?
You never know what's wrong in there.
Oh.
What is this?